Okay, so welcome to Slam Dunking Dyslexia. How would your life be different if you couldn't read? Put in the chat. And please mute yourselves, okay? If you couldn't read, what would your life be like? Oops. So I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron. I'm the founder of Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions. We are a nonprofit, and we have the mission to help dyslexic children develop literacy skills so they can realize their full potential and give positively back to their communities. And we do this by training teachers and tutors and parents. Sometimes I'll get a grant and we could scholarship a training for a teacher. Sometimes the teachers want to pay privately, and sometimes the schools will even reimburse teachers for their training, which I love that. So we teach phonics with music, and I'll show you exactly how we do that. I didn't learn about dyslexia until I was in my master's program for special ed, and a professor at the university recommended I join the International Dyslexia Association, of which I'm now a board member in the Tri-County branch in Southern California. But when my children were in first and third grade, I was a room mom, and I noticed that they both struggled in kinder and first grade with phonics. My daughter had to spend a couple of days after school with her teacher and a few other people. And my son had to go to summer school between first and second grade to learn phonics. They were concerned if he wasn't up to speed, he was going to have some struggles. So I was very involved, and that's what inspired me to go to school and get my teaching credential. It springboarded from there to get my special ed credential when I started seeing these bright students, and I just didn't know why they couldn't read or write. So I got my doctorate. It took me then I went back again. I'll share that journey with you. And I got my doctorate. It took me 7 years to get my doctorate. So I have the 2 California teaching credentials, 21 years of experience in education, 10 years as a classroom teacher. So if you are a teacher, I can relate to what your challenges are. So I've been a public speaker, and I am a curriculum developer. I'm also an app developer. Okay. Using my little clicker, it doesn't want to click. So I want you to meet my family. My husband and I will have been married 31 years this August. My daughter just got married last November. So these are my handsome sons and my daughter. And this is her husband and their little 7-year-old boy. So they're a blended family. And they got married at the beautiful winery in Temecula. So I want to welcome you. I equip heroic teachers with an effective literacy program to remediate dyslexia so we can close the achievement gap, stop the school to prison pipeline, and prepare kids for success in school and in life. Again, I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron, founder and president of Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions. If kids aren't reading by 4th grade, they're at risk of dropping out of high school and going to prison. 65.9% of students fail to reach grade level reading by 4th grade, and they rarely catch up. They're at risk of, if they don't go to prison, they'll go to be on welfare, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm going to share with you for the next hour exactly what has to be done. The problem is teachers aren't being trained to recognize dyslexia. There's not enough budget for extra professional development. When the teachers see those struggling readers, they're trying their best, but they just don't know what else to do for those struggling readers. So as a result, the children have lowered self-esteem. They start acting out in bad behavior. They start dropping out of high school and going to prison. So the formal definition of dyslexia by the International Dyslexia Association is that it's a specific learning disability that's neurobiological in origin. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition, and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. So I'm going to give you an easy way to say it. This is how I easily state it. Dyslexia is neurological in origin, so the brain can be retrained. It's more a learning difference than a learning disability, and it affects a student's reading, writing, and speaking. So I use the acronym COPS because when I got my doctorate, I was asked to teach at the middle school and high school for 4.5 years. And there was a cop on our campus, and I saw dyslexia all around me. And so C stands for crisis. We have a national reading crisis. In spite of the Assembly bill signed by Governor George Brown in October of 2015, that was AB 1369, schools were supposed to assess for dyslexia and provide intervention by the 2017-18 school year. Well, that hasn't been done. Please mute yourselves when you come in, and welcome. So we get a report card from the National Association of Educational Progress, known as NAEP. They look at the scores of our 4th graders nationwide and our 8th graders to determine how we're doing in reading. So I want to ask you a question. Put in the chat and put your name, because your name's popping up as me. So put your name. How many of you ever received a C- in a class and you were so glad to get that C- and you never want to see that topic again? Okay. And then put in the chat if you ever received a C- in a class that had a progression to it and you struggled because you really should have had a higher score to move on to the next levels. You were competing with kids who had A's and B's. I've been on both sides of that. And that's how our nation sees proficient is a C-. And only 1/3 of our students in this nation are there. So that means 2/3 of our students are not reaching proficiency. 1/3 of them are at basic and 1/3 are below basic. So if you look at these red marks on this slide, you can take a picture of any of these slides I show. This is proficient. So 4th graders have dropped 1 point. Look how low they were, and they're going again. 8th graders have dropped 3 points. Look how low they were, and they're dropping low again. We're going in the wrong direction. So this is a testimony of Cruz, who was going into 2nd grade. Last summer, his mom reached out to me because he didn't even know his letter names and sounds, and she was so worried about him. She homeschooled him, and so she was in a charter school. I trained a tutor to teach him his letter names and sounds in March, and then in July of the summer last year, he was ready to join our program as a 2nd grader using music and phonics. So this March, he actually exited special ed. He was tested at a 4th grade reading level. He assessed at a 4th grade reading level and a 5th grade comprehension level. So this mother says, this is a miracle. It still blows me away. And she says, your program and the tutor and you changed his life. She said that there's more results in other areas of his life, in his self-esteem, in his confidence, and his desire to try new things than just the reading. So this is going to impact many areas of their lives. So I bet you have a piece of paper next to you. And if you don't, I hope you can grab one, because I'm going to give you a dyslexia simulation. Okay? So can you raise your hand if you have a piece of paper? Or put in the chat. Let me see any hands raising. I see a couple hands raising. Because this dyslexia simulation is going to take some paper to write it down. Okay, so I want you to look at the words in these lines, and I want you to see what words have more than one vowel, remove the second vowel and then rewrite the word. So it'll look like this. The first sentence says laughter. You're going to cross out the U and rewrite the word L-A-G-H-T-E-R. I'm going to give you a minute to do that, okay? And if you don't have a piece of paper, it's a good, go ahead and get one, and then you could participate in the next 2 simulations that I have. Someone's humming. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it should look like. How is that on your brain? So here's a U, and these are the letters, and this is what your new words should look like. You can compare how you did. So raise your hand in participants, and under reactions, in the lower right, there's a little reaction circle. Raise your hand if that was challenging. So this is a reason we really like teachers to have highlighters, so they can highlight the words to help scaffold their students. And then a second color would let you highlight the second vowel. And so anytime you can write stuff on the board or use highlighters, highlight the lines, that's going to help your students with dyslexia. So this is a true or false. Put in the chat with your name. 4th graders in Los Angeles are reading better than the national average. If you answered false, you are correct. I think it's a no-brainer that we're not, you know, that we are not only below in California, but we are among the lowest in California. And you know, the Assembly Bill, AB 1369, was actually made into Ed Code 56335 in January of the next year. So we should be working on this. We should have been working on this in 2016. And there's a repeat of the students who fail to reach grade level reading by 4th grade. The data says 66%, they won't catch up. They rarely catch up. Parents work really hard to get them to catch up. So here's a second simulation. I want you to read this paragraph in the orange, and I want you to change every T to a D and every E to an I. So here's an example on the left. So the T in there was at the beginning. We're going to change it to a D, and the word there has 2 E's in it. So we're going to make it an I and an I. So D-H-I-R-I. Okay, does it make sense? Okay, I'm going to give you another minute to do this on your paper, and you'll feel what the dyslexic brain feels like. Okay, there's your minute. So these simulations really help stir up compassion for the dyslexic student. Let me see if you selected these words. Do your words look like that? Put in the chat with your name. Yes. If you did it. Good job. Okay. So again, having highlighters is going to help the student highlight those specific letters. And you could highlight the instruction that matches that letter. So what does dyslexia look like in the classroom? This was a 6th grader that I assessed, and I'm going to read these sentences to you. Number 1, the clam sat on the bottom of the ocean. Number 2, they rushed into the cottage in the nick of time. Number 3, we gathered around a campfire and told ghost stories. Number 4, Pittsfield has a population of about 50,000. Number 5, a conference was held to determine the future course of action. And number 6, I would love to share this mound of donuts with my cousin and you. You'll notice this student didn't number the sentences. He didn't punctuate. He didn't capitalize words. And there's a lot of word omissions and letters missing and letters in the wrong place. And he doesn't know the grammar rules, how the Y changes to I before we add ES. We need to explicitly teach grammar rules to dyslexic children. So back in 2005, I was teaching an after-school 6-week reading program with a phonics program and music. I had a parent from another district have her son come to our program. He was going to be entering 6th grade, and he was reading at a low 3rd grade level. She was so angry, and she was ready to sue the district. And she said, I'm going to give this program the last chance, or I'm going to sue the district. The awkward thing was she worked for the district, so she knew she'd lose her job. Well, after 6 weeks, he had made 3 years gains in reading vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. So you know she was ecstatic. The school was fortunate, and the son entered 6th grade, and he was able to work and progress with the other 6th graders in special ed. So this is what dyslexia looks like in the workplace. You'll start noticing this like the back of your hand, be familiar with it. It'll stand out, spelling errors. And this girl was in her 20s, so she didn't spell dollars correctly. There's lowercase and uppercase in the same word. She didn't know the dining rule, you know, the rule for dining, changing the E to an I before adding NG. And she, again, she rhymed my friend's name with pale, and I told her it's spelled D-A-L-E. We went to an elderly care center in San Diego, and I had lunch with my elderly friend's husband. So these were our receipts, and I'll tell you, I see dyslexia everywhere. I had a man that I met when I was working on my doctorate that was dyslexic, and he used music with his reading program, and he said it changed his life, and he was so glad I was carrying the baton to teach people about music. He said it changed his life because he used to feel like a liar and a thief, having someone else fill out his job application for him. And now he can read and write. So O, from our acronym COPS, O stands for opportunities. Dyslexic people have average to high intelligence. You may know someone that's dyslexic. You might even be dyslexic, and you're curious if the things I'm sharing relate to you. Well, Sam Orden and Anna Gillingham were the pioneers of dyslexia in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. And they saw students that had word blindedness. In the 1960s, they called it dyslexia. But in the early 1960s, it was word blindedness. And they said that these kids need a multi-sensory reading program. The program needs to be structured, sequential, systematic, and we have those kinds of routines in our in our days. How we get up in the morning, how we get ready for a vacation, how we pack up to go camping, how we get our kids ready for school. Mute yourself, please, as you come in. And so the program should also be cumulative, and it needs to be flexible. If we need to change things up here and there because the student needs a little bit of scaffolding, that's got to be okay. And it needs to be emotionally sound. The student needs to feel good about themselves. They need to feel good about coming to tutoring because they know they're going to learn, and they need to go away knowing they've learned something. So this is called structured literacy. Here are some people that have dyslexia or had dyslexias in the case of Walt Disney, but you may recognize some of them. They were great contributors to the world and to this nation. Albert Einstein, Steven Spielberg, Tim Tebow. Now, one of my favorites is Leonardo da Vinci. He painted the Mona Lisa. I don't think she was dyslexic, but he was so talented. He's my favorite one because, man, he was musical and artistic. And anyway, here are some, examples of dyslexic people are not dumb. So my research is based on Dr. Roger Sperry's research. He won a Nobel Prize for his research called the split brain theory. Back in the 1960s, it was the early 1960s when the kids still had word blindedness. He worked on seizure patients. He severed the central part of the brain, the corpus callosum. And I want to show you the brain I just bought. Look at this little brain. Have to share that. It's 30 pieces. But he severed the corpus callosum, and he worked with the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain independently. And the seizures stopped, and the people could function. And he said at his conferences that people who mentored me went to, in Germany even, he said if educators would take this information into the classroom, we'd have some breakthrough with our kids who couldn't read. So he won a Nobel Prize 20 years later. And this is what my research is based on. So now I want to share with you about dyslexia. The language center is the left side of the brain. Imagine your child is reading from the wrong side of the brain, the right side of the brain, okay? So the right angular gyrus wants to send over calp instead of clap, farm instead of from. It wants to send over the wrong letters in the wrong order. Also, it goes over this corpus callosum that acts as a lazy referee. So that's some of your auditory processing problem. So what we've done is we put music in the left ear. It crosses directly to the right angular gyrus, and it gives it a job it likes to do. Then we put spelling exercises in the right ear, which cross to the left angular gyrus. And it's like Pilates of the left angular gyrus. And it bypasses the corpus callosum. So the transference isn't being slowed down. This is why we get these profound results. 1 to 3 year gains in only 6 weeks with our students. Come on. So here's a copy of the brain I wanted to show you. Language is on the left side, and create the language in the right hand control is in the left. Creativity, music awareness, and left hand control is in the right side of the brain. I'm in the Ortongillingham training right now. I just spent 2 weeks of intensive online learning, 30 hours in the morning and 60 hours in the nights. And I was inspired to buy a brain from Amazon with 30 pieces to learn the parts of the brain. And I am going to get my Ortongillingham certification after I complete a practicum in 8 months. So here's another true and false. Put in the chat, 88% of juveniles in the juvenile court system are illiterate. Put your name with your chat so I know who you are, because your name will appear as my name. So this is true. I have a friend who teaches criminal justice at one of our local universities. And he told me when he worked for the Department of Justice back east, he knows a state that looked at the illiteracy rate of third graders to determine how many prisons to build. Now, if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what does, but I'm sure it does. So the P in our COPS acronym stands for prisons. In our special ed programs, 85% of those students also have dyslexia. I want to share with you some prices, some income that the prisons bring in. In California, the prisons will bring in $42,000 for inmate. General education brings in $13,000 per student. Special ed brings in $26,000 per special ed student. So what if we could help remediate these children at the young ages, grades 1 through 3, get them reading by 4th grade, keep them out of special ed, or even let them exit special ed with an excellent intervention program. We could build their self-esteem, let them realize their full potential, and what a savings to our taxpayer dollars. Here's your third simulation. I want you to read this paragraph and let me know your reaction to it. I'm going to give you a minute for this as well. Please mute yourself. I hear some background noise.
Why can't it be a little bit of both? Research isn't the only reason we're out here. Lieutenant Commander. Thanks, Captain. Don't worry. Keep out of your ear. Captain wasn't sure what to do when those were retired decades ago.
Becky, if you're able to mute yourself, please mute yourself. Okay. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of support with this paragraph. I'm going to give you a title. I'm going to give you a picture. Now I want you to read it again and see how much better you feel about reading it. Giving you another minute. So put in your chat if you liked seeing a picture and seeing a title, and it was so, or raise your hand, that would be okay too. Under participants, reaction. This goes to show how helpful it is to have those kinds of support. What if you were the student that had to go to the bathroom and you missed the instruction and you were too shy when you came back to ask a peer, what did I miss? That's what happens with our dyslexic children. True or false? Put in the chat with your name. Dyslexia has been known to cause ulcers in children. True. Students with dyslexia experience anxiety, depression, and have dyslexia-induced ulcers. So the S in our acronym stands for success. What does success look like reading success look like in your home? Raise your hand or put in the chat. How many of you remember going to the library with your kids or your grandkids to get a dozen books and you had to decide which ones you could bring home because you couldn't bring them all home? And then when you brought them home, your child read them over and over again, and you read them over and over again. And it was just such a fun time reading, because you could go places that you can't go, and you could meet people you never would meet in people. Reading is such a gift. Well, that's not the reality of a home of a dyslexic child. In fact, kids with dyslexia panic when they're called on to read. They don't want to raise their hand. I had a mother who told me her 10-year-old son confessed when he was 8, he used to make excuses to go to the bathroom because he didn't want to read. They were taking him to the doctor every other weekend. They thought he had a bladder infection. And he said, "Mom, I just hated to read." So dyslexic children will memorize words. So they'll read words if they've memorized them. But if they get words that are unfamiliar, they'll glance and guess. Raise your hand if glancing and guessing is a typical thing you see in the students you work with. They might get the beginning of the word right, but the rest of it they get wrong. So reading is very stress-induced for students. And then when their peers try to help them, not only do they feel dumb, but they really feel worse when when the other peers help them. Unless you're in a one-on-one setting and they're asking you for help, it's really hard for them. So this is a study from Stanford University about music. When kids with ADHD listen to music, their wandering stopped. And when I was even teaching math, I would let the kids listen to music in their left ear. But this is just extra support why music, when you teach reading, is going to help students. I had a student named Ronnie. He was a 7th grader and he was adopted. He had ADHD and he had dyslexia. He would announce to the class, "I'm adopted and I have ADHD and I have dyslexia," like he was proud of it. And it was a crack up. He was the sweetest kid in the class. He said, "The Ritalin helps my ADHD, but the music helps me learn." Now, we had music written into his IEP through the next 2 years of middle school, and it carried with him through high school because we had a school psychologist that saw the results and she was on board with us. Schools have to be open-minded and they have to see what's helping the kids. So these are some results that I had. People want to see the data. Well, when I worked with music in an after-school program in 2015, we had all these improvements in comprehension and in oral reading quotients. So we had 2nd graders through 10th graders. These were the percent differences. So this is where I probably would have shared the story about the 6th grader from another district, but I shared that story. The parent didn't have to sue the district. And then this is again Daniela's story. The father asked, "What are you doing?" You know, I don't even know if I shared that story, but Daniela struggled, and the grandfather was raising her because her mom was in prison, and the grandfather was afraid she would follow that parents' track because there is a genetic component to dyslexia, and this will be a repeat maybe for people who came in a little bit later. But Daniela was a 7th grader or an 8th grader. Anyway, her dad had tried everything, her grandfather tried everything and nothing was working. So he came to me, and after 2 weeks, he started noticing a change in her behavior and her attitude about school. And then after 6 weeks, when I shared her gains, 6 weeks gain, 3 years gains in reading fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary, he started weeping. And he said, "This is a miracle. Our home used to be a battlefield, and now she gets along with her peers, with her students at school, her friends at school, and she enjoys going to school." He asked, "What am I doing?" And I said, "It's music combined with phonics." And he said, "Well, this is a miracle." He said, "Are you a doctor?" And that's what I just knew God was speaking to my heart. Go back to school, get another degree. I already had 2 masters, but I'm going to get a doctorate degree. That one took me 7 years to get, and I wrote about it in a book, A Message of Hope, How Music Enhances Reading for Dyslexic Children. And that's available for you on Amazon. Any teacher of a dyslexic child and every parent should have this book. And you know, dyslexic children are in the social studies and science classes too, so it would be wonderful if a service group would offer to buy this for the school district, because teachers need to know about dyslexia. And when I did my doctorate research, it was kind of unprecedented that 6 weeks had that much gain. So I had 2 internal review boards. I had to do my research for 12 weeks. So I was happy to do it. The kids came into my program in the 10 to 20 percentile range. They were doing return to intervention. After those 12 weeks, those without the music, phonics only, achieved the 40 percentile range. Those with the music had an additional significant improvement, reaching the 60 percentile range. So this was just showed the growth is there with phonics, and it's even more, it's enhanced with music. So there's a lot of negative self-talk with dyslexic children. They're frustrated, they feel dumb, they want to quit trying. I've even heard teachers call them dumb, call them lazy, and they're not lazy, they're trying their hardest. So what they need is the structured classroom. When you teach with a multisensory reading program, you're teaching to a child's strength as well as to their weakness. So put in the chat, true or false. The vast majority of teachers have been given specific training on how to help dyslexic students. That's a false statement. Only a percentage of students, teachers have been trained to work with dyslexic students. The interesting thing is, teachers in grades 1st, 2nd, and 3rd are taught to teach reading, but they're not even taught to teach dyslexic children. I was never taught in my teaching programs. But 4th through 12th grade, they're not trained to work with dyslexic children. That's why we really have to help those teachers at the higher grades get these kids reading so that when they reach 4th grade, they can read to learn, right? So I have a step-by-step reading program that has 6 books. It's 1 hour a day, and 25 to 30 sessions will give you those 1 to 3 year gains. This is what the program looks like. We start with phonogram cards. So I have 101 of them. We teach the letter name, the key concept picture, and the letter sound. So a student would say A, X, A. And we have, like I said, 101 of those. And I have these in piles of 3. Once the student knows the sound, that graduates to the pile where they only have to say the sound. They don't have to keep repeating the letter name. And we put the key concept picture away. The second pile is going to do the sounds that need review. And then the third pile is going to be the sounds that still are to be introduced. And we introduce about 1 every other day. This is just a little example. I color code them and I number them the way they appear in the phonics reading that we do. So here are just a quick example of some of the key concept pictures. I'm also having these made into small cards so that if you work with multiple students, each student will have their own phonogram card set with pictures because everyone's going to move at a different pace. So step 2, and you might want to write these steps down. Step 2 is when we use sound circles. So I give the people that I train, I give them an 8-pound box with all the materials. One of the things I throw in are these index cards that are on a spiral, and the teachers write the words, some of the words from the spelling test for that day, and we have substitutions. So we would write Doug becomes bug becomes bum. So what we do is we have the student working online. The students have their own manipulatives. If they're in a place where they can go to your home, they'll still have their own manipulatives in front of them, and you have yours from your teacher kit. So we'll pull down a dark circle for D, the light circle for the vowel and another dark circle G. So we would say D, G. And then we have the student point to each sound and say it. So they point and say D, G, Doug, and they wrap the word up. Then we say, repeat after me, Doug becomes bug. And they say Doug becomes bug. What changes? And I have them repeat after me until they get the hang of it. The D goes away and the B comes down. And they point and say again, B-U-G, bug. So bug becomes bum, and they repeat it. So then the G goes away and the comes down. So then they point and say, B-U-M. So we do this for about 3 words. And I'm gonna go ahead and see who needs to be muted. Okay, because I hear a little bit of background noise and sometimes, and people are just coming on a little bit late, so they don't know to mute themselves. Anyway, so that's step 2. And that we work for about 5 minutes with that step. The phonogram cards were about 1 to 2 or 3 minutes. And then, oops, hold on. Step 3 are the letters. And I personally spray paint the vowels black, and I spray paint the C and G silver to help learning the C and G sounds. And what the student does, we model for them and they repeat. The P goes before and after, before and after, before and after. So I used to work with an organization that kept the P and B together, but some of the Ortongillingham models will separate the P and B. And that's why they're all so different. They all find reasons to do things a little differently, but we like to keep the P and B together. So this looks like pa, ap, pa, ep, pi, ip, pa, up, pa, up. And we do that with each of the letters. And then we have a special strategy to teach the C and the G. I talk about the slingshot. And this is in our mini lessons. We teach grammar rules, but the E, I, and the Y are like stones that shoot the C and the G. So instead of the hard sound, they say the soft sounds, S or J. It's really fun and engaging, and the kids remember it. This is a really nice picture that someone posted on Facebook. A chair is a chair is a chair, no matter how you turn it. But the B and the D and the Q and the P are very confusing. And in my office, I even put these on my doors with words to help the students. And the letters that I purchase are bright, colorful letters, and I will mark them to help you. So true or false? Dyslexic people have low intelligence. That is false. Dyslexic students have average to high intelligence, but they're often looked at as being lazy and not trying hard enough. Dyslexic people are very artistic, and they are creative in the music and arts, dancing and acting. So step 4 is 10 minutes of reading phonics. So this is another reason how our program is unique, because we let the students listen to music in the left ear now. And then the second part, this has 7 parts. The second part is the phonics reading. And it looks like this. This is my little student working online with his Arlene glasses. But set, sit, pan, nap, ban, nab. We have the letters that, change the vowels, change beginning, ending sounds. It's a very unique program with the reading. So some of the extra scaffolds some students need might be bringing out these little cubes that stack. So let me look and mute again. Oops. Oh, okay. There's someone else whose name is my name, so. All right. And so we use these cubes that will help, but eventually we want them to go away with the sound circles. So write this down. Step 5 is a phonological awareness, and it's a script that I provide. So what we do is we write the word on the whiteboard, and we have the child repeat the word after us. So I'll say hat, and they'll say hat. And we'll tap it out with h, a, t, and we underline it, hat. You can also use your fingers like that, h, a, t. Different programs do it differently. And so what we ask is, in the word hat, what sound does the H make? In the word hat, what sound does the A make? In the word hat, what sound does the T make? In the word hat, what letter says T? In the word hat, what letter says H? In the word hat, what letter says A? Okay, say hat, hat. So say hat again, but instead of the H, put a and they'll say mat. And then I ask, can you use mat in a good sentence? My cat sat on a mat. So there's a couple different things we do for phonological awareness, and there's a script, so it's great. If you want to introduce some sight words, we would introduce sight words here on alternate weeks, and we have a special way to teach sight words. And then step 6, we have workbook 1. So the juniors have 36 pages. Their book has enlarged print and enlarged lines. So this would be for 4th grade and younger. And we start our program with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 4th grade. So the seniors workbook 1 is identical to the first 36 pages, but it has smaller font, and it goes up to 96 pages. So there's a lot more work. And you could even work with a student through a year with the phonics that's involved in this workbook. So then we break away and do another phonological awareness drill. We take out the same index cards and we pick another word. This time we don't write it on the board. All we do is say jug, and they say jug. So we tap it out, j, g, jug. So in the word jug, what's the beginning sound? And they'll say j. In the word jug, what's the ending sound? They'll say g. In the word jug, what's the middle sound or the vowel sound? And they'll say Say jug, jug. Can you give a rhyming word for jug? And they'll say mug. And that's it. It's a 30-second script with a little bit of phonological awareness. And wow, it gets those synapses fired, and those students are learning. We're creating those tracks in their brain. It reminds me of going through a forest and how happy you are when someone has already made a trail for you when you're hiking. So we are making those new trails so that the memory is strengthened. So step 8 is workbook 2 if you are a 5th grade or older. And these are the grammar rules that we teach explicitly, and it's a workbook. So we talk about verb tenses, adjectives, multiple meanings, comprehension, a lot of writing and a lot of comprehension in this workbook. It's wonderful. So we work 10 minutes, and here's a little music note reminder. We allow the student to listen to music only. And my app, Dunking Dyslexia, has one exercise that's all classical music. So they'll just play it in their left ear while they work with you. Now, working online, the parent has to be next to them on their computer and helping them with it. And then I also, if you go through my training, I send you my files so you have them online to pull it up online. And it's really fun because we're starting to let the kids annotate online and they can be very engaged in that. So true or false? Effective intervention can make a huge difference in the lives of students. Absolutely true. And music with a multisensory reading program, step-by-step reading, kids are making 1 to 3 year gains in only 6 weeks. So that's 30 sessions. We received a grant from a local community to train 3 teachers, and they're each going to work with 3 students. So we have 9 students. And that's what we do. We write grants. Sometimes we'll get scholarships for you. So let me know in the chat if you'd be interested in a scholarship. Be sure you list your name. So step 9 is the spelling test that we give at the end of the 9 steps. So at the end of the hour, 10 minutes to the hour's end, we're going to give a spelling exercise. I give you the app for free for 2 months, and it's only $9.99 a month now on your Apple or Android, and you could buy it now if you want to check it out. But there's 28 spelling exercises, 8 groups of sentences, and you can break them up to help the student who's a little slower. If I'm speaking slowly and it's still too fast for them, then we want to dictate the words to them, but still let them listen to music. So I have an affordable alternative to an expensive program. So kids can be, how would we bring this into a classroom? It would be really cool if the administrators would allow some of the discretionary funds to help the teachers get trained. This could be done in after-school programs. It could be done privately in private tutoring. There's a lot of parents who are going to want to start homeschooling. So homeschooling moms can learn this. And also, if teachers are working online, if they want another way to help kids online and get some supplemental income, that's an option. And a lot of substitute teachers don't have jobs to go back to. So this is a great way for a substitute to help students and develop their learning. So this is a time for questions, and I'm going to stop my share so that you can ask me some questions in the chat before we go on. Any questions? So I shared how we implement it. Go ahead and type your question in, Tammy.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if had there been any of your kids who may not have been so successful as others, and what would be the factors then?
Yes, so I'm actually surprised when a student doesn't take off and grow really fast with this. One of the students I tutored online early in the summer with COVID had a touch of autism. So that was a lot of change for him to be with his own teacher online and then to work with me online. So I worked with him for 3 weeks and then we stopped. And then another student I've been working with was a lot slower than I was used to. And it turned out he needed glasses. So he's getting glasses right now. And I always ask the students, do you have glasses? If they struggle, I ask the parent, get them tested outside of the school district, because I even had a student when I was a special ed teacher of a 2nd grader. He had ear problems, but he passed the school's ear test. So when he went to an outside doctor, he needed tubes in his ears because he was hearing like he was underwater. So usually there's a situation where they might need glasses, they might have hearing issues, but this program really helps those kids move forward. Good question.
Thank you. I would really love to try this.
Oh, step 1 in COPS, the piece C was crisis, O was opportunities, P was prisons, and the S was success stories. And I wondered, at the very top of the chat, I have a landing page that you can copy if you're interested in training. Let me go ahead and share. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I want to know about hear more about the music.
It's classical music.
And did you just pick random classical music?
No,
Or-
I picked my favorites. Bach,
okay.
Beethoven, Tchaikovsky. It's all the beautiful classical music. A lot of times in our college years, we listened to classical music to study, and it helped us. I've had lawyers tell me they always listen to classical music to calm down. So when I work with middle school and high schoolers, I let them use their own playlist because I pick my battles, and I was so glad that those kids were cooperative. But I always had to be sure it was in their left ear and that it wasn't too loud and the words weren't taking over. And it works also. But the minute they would start rocking, you know, so in a classroom setting, once they start rocking out or not paying attention, they lose the privilege of listening to music. But in the intervention, I listened to classical music, or they listened to classical. And when I was going on one of my vacations this year, we took a long drive, and I heard a study, a YouTube study about the stringed instruments resonate with the water in our body and in our brain. And we have so much water in our body and our brain. No wonder we like harps, and classical music really resonates with our bodies.
Yeah,
That's a great question.
I've never heard of that before, because it seems like the dyslexia kids always have distraction issues. So playing music in their left ear while you're trying to work with them, right?
Yes.
Is like, that's a huge.
That's worth millions. Yeah. That's worth millions. So someone asked, when you teach vowel digraphs, you use 2 light counters or 1 sound. So the digraph are 2 consonants like S and L. So I use 2 dark counters. And then, because each sound has its own. So yeah. So if it's a vowel team, it would be 2 light, but I put them on top of each other because you hear 1 sound. And that's one way the cubes, you could show that with the cubes. And I'll show you that in the training.
Oh, right. You stack the cubes one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my question.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again because I want to ask you, do I have permission to share my program, my training program? It's called Dyslexia Dismantled, and it's coming up on August 12th and 13th. I used to have a 1-day training, but now I have a 2-day training from 10 to 4, and I'm going to limit it to 10 people, and I'll tell you why. First of all, who is it for? This is for parents, teachers, paraprofessionals, substitute teachers, instructional aides, college students, anyone who's interested in helping students, dyslexic children. What you're going to learn is the Ortongillingham model for teaching dyslexic students. You're going to demonstrate your understanding of structure and the benefits of being systematic. You'll understand and be able to teach and explain my 9-step reading program. You'll understand the ways to teach phonological awareness and what you need to do to scaffold students who may be struggling. You'll be able to recognize dyslexia in the classroom, and you'll be able to describe dyslexia to others. You're going to know it like the back of your hand. The key benefits: you may receive a pay raise at your current place of employment. You may get another job that's looking for help. You'll be more marketable, so you can work with multiple students. You'll be addressing our reading crisis and possibly keeping someone out of prison. Here's my magic box of training materials. These are 8-pound boxes. This one went to Canada. This one went to South Carolina, and another one went to Yosemite. So let me send you a kit. We have 6 books: the teacher guide, the mini lesson, Blackline Masters, that have beginning, middle, ending sounds for the spelling exercises if your student needs that. The junior workbook and the senior workbooks 1 and 2. So the teacher guide has 7 parts. It has teacher instructions that I go through with you. So we do an I do, we do, you do type of a training, phonics reading, spelling exercises. I have my resources that have the 50 scientific references of why this works. And then I give you progress monitoring for the phonics and the 2 workbooks, because you might have an IEP that covers some of these areas, which you will, and this will really be helpful for IEPs. The mini lessons have 5 lessons, but there are 45 activities that teach grammar. So we explicitly teach grammar to the students, and this is where we do our coding. We want to code the words. We teach the syllable types to the students, and this is where we do it in the mini lessons. You are guaranteed results by the 2nd week of 10 sessions, and more amazing results after 6 weeks. I did my 6-week intervention 5 days a week. We're doing the intervention in this local community 4 days a week. It's kind of nice to have a Friday break when you have a lot of students, but 25 to 30 sessions will bring you these results. And I personally guarantee that you will get my help until you're comfortable tutoring. So what this includes is the training program for $1,997. Your curriculum is included for $750. I'm going to remind you of all the things that are included, and I even throw in some extras. I throw in the index cards and the cubes for you if you want additional to the sound circles, for a total value of $2,747. But wait, you have some bonus items. You have my book. I'm going to autograph my book, valued at, how much did my doctorate program cost me?
Yeah.
And you have my music app for 2 months.
Music app.
And the music app is Dunking Dyslexia. And so the book, you could buy it on Amazon or you could get it free. You'll get 2 30-minute coaching sessions with me. And I give you an Excel spreadsheet for tracking multiple students when you get to that point. And I'm going to put these trainings on recordings and send them to you for review. So this has a bonus value of $435. So because of COVID, look at the totals here. The grand total of the program would be $3,182. But because of COVID, I am going to give you a discount of $2,185. So today only, for the first 10 people, it's going to be $997. So I say my program costs $1,000 and you're going to impact thousands of lives. Shipping and handling is not included because people living in different countries and different states, it'll cost a little bit differently. But you can pay me with PayPal, Venmo, and if you want to text me now, it's going to be limited to the first 10 people who sign up, because I want to be sure I give enough time for the coaching sessions and to support you. So take a picture with your phone of this, and if you want to text me before the end of the night, I'll honor that price. And then on the top of the chat, I had a landing page.
A landing page.
The landing page is another way to sign up. You could email me or text me. And if I didn't answer some of the questions in the chat, I'll respond to you. But that's the program, friends. Together, let's nip this reading crisis in the bud. It starts in the home, spreads to the community, and let's get across the nation. So I'm going to close now. Thank you. I'm Dr. Marian Cintron, president of Step by Step Dyslexia Solutions. I really look forward to hearing from you. And thank you for your time, and thank you for your labor of love to work with students. Bye-bye now.